Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Mary at Uncustomary England, and today you're going to learn a little bit more about me, maybe from a different angle. So I have been interviewed in many podcasts, magazines, newspapers, articles, all of these things, and I was recently interviewed in Voyage Baltimore, which is a place that sort of lets people inform others about who they think should be interviewed and featured, which is really cool. I was recently watching the show The Righteous Gemstones, which is extremely funny. And there is a moment where John Goodman's character is reading for his new book, and he calls it his definitive autobiography. And he says that because he has already written two before that. And he's like, the story has just kept changing and I find more things. And this one I'm going to say is the definitive one. And by no means has my definitive autobiography been written, but I think that that's part of what living is. It's about continuing and having new answers to the same questions. And sometimes having the exact same ones. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the questions in my interview with Voyage Baltimore, which gives you a lot of your own agency to tell your own story in your own words. So here we go. Hi, Mary. Thanks for sharing your story with us. To start, maybe you can tell our readers some of your backstory. My story, like many, starts with being different. People outside of my home noticed my differences in negative ways. People inside my home neglected my differences. Unfortunately, the noticing didn't come with assistance or resources, and the neglecting didn't come with acceptance. So the more frustrated and confused I became. I felt like I was in a constantly chaotic state, both in my body and my environment. And I just wanted to have some sense of control. This bubbled out into additional ways of being different because my brain was just looking for ways to self-soothe. Looking back, if we want to ascribe labels to these differences, I would call the original difference autism, and the things that bubbled up as OCD, Tourette's, dissociative fugue, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, panic attacks, trichotillomania, self-harm, drug addiction, and more. These self-soothing states got out of control and essentially took over my life. And this, combined with my original uniqueness and sensitivity to life, and not having language for it or understanding it, set me up to make poor life decisions regarding dating, diet, drugs, finances, and more. What I believe set me up for making it through these things are a few factors. One, I have a core belief that humans are good. Still. Two, I have extremely high hopes. This often leads to disappointment, but it can also be coupled into ambition. 3, I have experienced many adversities with relatively high frequency. In my experience, most people will experience a handful of adversities that are at what they feel is at an 8 or 10 on their scale of pain. I started experiencing adversity very young, and while many of them aren't always an 8 or higher, the frequency of them allowed me to expand my own threshold to pain. So even when a 10 does come my way, it kind of feels like a 4 to me. Many people want to hear about that one moment that, quote, changed your life. I don't believe there is one moment. I think there are many moments. It's not as grabby, but it's more realistic and therefore potentially more inspirational. I remember the last time I ended up face down in a field with my shoes missing and decided I had to do something about my mental health, so I went to cognitive behavioral therapy. I remember the day I put rainbow paint on my face to go to trauma therapy, scared as hell to have to say his name. It took me a year. I remember the first time I finally saw a shamrock without having a flashback. I remember the time I quit my job even though I didn't know if I could make my own business work. I remember the 4 times I almost quit my business and didn't. I remember the day I opened up the box with my published book. I remember the first time someone sent me a message to tell me that that book changed their life. I remember the first time my blood work was perfect. I remember crying in my yard wondering if I had what it takes to keep going. I remember how many people showed up for the 3rd annual scarf abandonment event. I remember the first time I was recognized on the street. I remember the first time I went a month without doing ketamine. I remember sitting down with my mother, asking her to apologize, and her not being able to physically say the words. I remember learning what shadow banned meant. I remember not being able to pay my rent. I remember hiring my first person. I remember finding out he had a different name and arrest records in different states. I remember realizing I was mostly on my own with so many decisions, behaviors, and changes. See, the thing with self-improvement is it's consistent. It's not linear, it's just what you do. It's consistent changes you make. It's what you focus on. It's what you decide to prioritize. And to me, I want to prioritize feeling good to do good. I believe a lot of self-improvement ethos only focus on the feeling good aspects, the manifesting good things for themselves element, and then they stop. My belief is if we stop there, we have failed. Fill your own cup first, yes, you must, but then you must go back out into the world and help, and spread joy through whatever lens of passion and creativity you are good at. In the Merriment Making method, I teach 3 different sections: embody joy, create joy, and spread joy. How to feel good, how to figure out what you're good at and make it, and then how to go out and be kind and advocate for what you want to see happen in the world. I'm also at a point where I'm trying to shift into differentiating the resources for people who are coming to self-improvement because they are deeply struggling versus the people who are interested in self-improvement because they want to maximize their life as it already is. Being on the floor, not able to move, and wanting to prioritize and optimize your morning routine are very different mindsets, and it's difficult to talk to the same audience when there's really 2 different topics at play. Things keep changing, and so do I. But I have been and will always be a Merriment Maker. As you know, we're big fans of Uncustomary Merriment Maker. For our readers who might not be as familiar, what can you tell them about your brand? Really, my whole goal is to remind us all, adults, that we didn't choose to grow up, that it's difficult. And in order to enjoy this life, we do have to focus on our own happiness, at least a little. We also need to know what happiness means to us. So I've made my business about helping overwhelmed humans create happiness habits. I want to inject some fun and play into our world. So today I have a lot of ways to do that through fast and easy services like good news texts and the mail newsletter, structured programs like the 30-day reset and Feel Good Troop, more long-term support in the Merriment Makers and Feel Good Troop vaults, which are basically giant happy resource libraries, and one-on-one coaching. Plus I do real-world events like Operation Merriment and Mixers and the Bubble Parade, and I am the Arts and Merriment Director of the Hamden Highlights Festival. I also have physical products like my books, workbook, deck, and other fun goodies. You can also get started for free with over 100 free resources in the Positive Pulse. And that's at uncustomary.org/positive-pulse. There's over 400 people in there as I'm recording this, and we just started. I'm extremely excited to see how this goes. Something else I do that makes me fun and unique is guerrilla art. I love making art and leaving it as random acts of kindness, making interactive street art installations, and doing public performance art. You can find videos of all of that on my social media. And if you're interested in getting involved, I would really recommend checking out Operation Merriment, where you can come make guerrilla art with me. That's pretty much everything that I wrote in the Voyage Baltimore interview. I actually chose to not answer a lot of other questions because this is what I wanted to focus on. And then it just kind of has my links at the bottom of how to access me on the internet. Uncustomary.org is my website. I'm at Merriment Maker on Instagram and Facebook, and my / on YouTube is Mary England. Of course, I also have this podcast and the Positive Pulse, and there's just so many ways, but if you go to uncustomary.org, you'll pretty much find them all. Anyway, I just wanted to share this interview and give you a little overview, I guess, of who I am. And I'll link the actual interview from voyagebaltimore.com in the show notes if you want to check it out in a more visual way. It also has a bunch of pictures. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, supporting me. If you want to leave me a review, that's super helpful. It helps other people find us. And remember that you have to feel good to do good. It's the most important thing. I love you. I'll see you next time.